So, ladies and gentlemen, it is coming up on 8 o'clock. It's roughly 7:59, so I think this would be an appropriate time for you all to enjoy refreshments.
Okay.
8 o'clock to 8:30 is the window we assemble for people to arrive. But at 8 o'clock, you all can help yourselves, save some for the rest. Nevertheless, enjoy. Thank you. Who, Dolores?
We're ready.
Am I good to go? Are we good to go? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you heard Dolores. Go get it. So Anita, that's funny. You working that all up with everybody. I think that's funny. But what are your thoughts right now? Pretty much consistent with what we talked about before.
At the end of the day, good morning. At the end of the day, I just don't think we're going to have enough.
Like, what could there be? I think it was all done in bad taste.
Yeah.
I think
Turn that on.
of course you do.
Guys, just put me in the bag. How are you? I'm good. How are you?
Down here, Gellin.
So, man, it's a cool end.
Cool kids club over here, man.
So you're like diagonal.
Sit right next to you.
Not too bad.
Oh my gosh. I guess we don't have a. We don't have a ballot now. We usually start the meeting with one, but anyway, I'll let her do it. Yes, ma'am.
Sure what to expect, so I came prepared.
Oh, first, I think you are over there. You have a name tag?
Yes.
Stephanie, Monte, how are y'all?
Terrence already told me he won't progress. At least if there was a weighing later. I hate to rub it in. You look a little desperate. Well, I assume so.
I don't like
Maybe something. Oh, good. I know you're not too proud. Go ahead.
Take it.
Well said.
Sad for you not going on vacation till August.
I'm going late July, so good.
So good to see you. There's a roaring endorsement for you.
Oh, God, come on, you know, that's real, you.
They put two prices together.
Right.
They're in trouble.
There you go.
So it's important.
That's what the heck I was used to weekend.
Oh.
Early morning day. I hope that there was going to be coffee.
I wonder if you have any extra coffee.
Have you been?
But those are all for the
I think it's 25 days ago. Crazy reality.
But no, this is where
Oh, you wanted the coffee? Yeah, it's warm. I don't know what that is though. We gotta check.
of course. And I think that's what we're doing. Right. Thanks.
Right.
Friday. It's the best day of the week.
This was the first year that I personally connected to Kiwanis. I did a couple of days. So that was it. Normally I kind of shied away from it.
They're gonna come up.
Yeah, I hear you.
The library.
No more hearing for you.
Oh, yeah.
Morning, Jay.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Excited to be here.
I found it really enjoyable. All we did was we gave out water for donation.
Oh, yeah.
See if I'm going to steal your black pepper. I love it. The egg seems like we're going to have to fight the chef.
My first one was, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so now I'm like,
The chef will
Demanding it. Waiting for it.
totally get that.
But
Give cook
when
more.
it was relatively easy to do, all we did was let the donations of water and stuff in it. Either now or right.
It's all right. Yeah, next year we won't put
Water is like a great
It's a lot. So
a lot of exciting and it was all day crowd, right? No, it was enjoyable. Yeah, such two or three luminaries come by. Get a free water.
That's it. Wasn't the that guy was an
We have a quorum. You strolled in. Yeah, good thing. Oh my goodness. That's funny.
How are you? I am. You're all set.
Thanks God they put you between me and Sam. You know, I couldn't take them.
Fight this.
For 8 hours.
I'm going to survive this day between the two of you. This character next to me.
It's not.
Just him.
She was talking to me about you. Would you turn it off?
The button says push.
Don't remind me.
No, I know.
My kids already did. They did for them. So that was nice. So, but now, last my daughter
No,
tomorrow he says there, what is that? I'll say Jack. Oh, there.
no, I hear you.
But that's so, she used number 2 phone.
Hey, take it. We mean, but Monday is probably a sure bet. Monday, that way it gives you a chance to, you know. Yeah, yeah. All right, definitely. Okay, bye. The green is cheese. Rose. There's something about it. Yeah, I think it's green. I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Gotta have it, yes.
Everyone's going to be looking at me. Everyone's going to be looking at us.
That's probably never.
Is there like space a little bit? Like hanging off? No, me.
Pretty worse. That's like my one life. I think it is. Yeah. So that's my vice. That's the best. Not that I really need it, but yeah. I tried coffee once in my life. Yeah, back in graduate school, I had this assessment center thing.
You are in the right place. I'm only going to be here for an hour.
Saturday assessment and all that. I decided to go to Starbucks downtown just to see what everybody's been talking about. I never had it one time, never again. But this is nothing, along with vitamins and nuts.
Sorry. I just found out myself.
Just didn't care for it. Yeah, no adverse effects. Just didn't care for it. So, iced tea, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, but Mountain Dew.
That's a plus.
Water, of course, Gatorade. Yeah, that's what it is. A little bit, yeah. But it's really a moderate. Yeah, yeah, it's like one can a day. Not too much. Yeah, I try to be, yes.
As usual.
So with my son's working in Graham, and they're with his iPod, you know, support a little bit better. Places like that. What's up, people?
These are all city people. Department heads and
That's not real.
commission.
People like that. Yeah.
You are for the workshop, right? City workshop.
Yeah, so I couldn't even. I mean, I like iced tea. I make iced tea with the bag and all that. We did all those things. Yeah, actually, fire department.
Sam Meachard is next to me.
Sammy Walthour.
Oh, Sammy Walker, I don't see.
Ken Edwards. You're over there, Sam Walthour. Okay, you came to the wrong side of the U.
Someone knocked Sam's sign down. That's creamer. No, it's probably coffee. No, that's funny. Yeah, that's not. You know.
It's like a bigger radio, you know.
Vice Mayor?
Give me this, give me that.
Yeah, right. How you do?
Guitar.
Yes, ma'am. That's right. I'll wait.
Guitar. That's what real sweet. Face me. What do you mean there? Huh? Yeah, the one in the box. That's, yeah. You need carbon dating.
Well, I think it was supposed to be Giacomo. I think that's probably.
Oh, you're funny.
Greg got sick.
I know, yeah, and so that's why you're here.
Yeah.
You're representing the.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing better today than yesterday.
Who's in Jackson?
No, he's in a little place called Jasper or something like that.
I see the sign. I see the sign from traveling in Jasper.
Not Jasper, it's Jess something or other.
Okay,
Anyway,
okay.
Justin or Just it's in a long way in Georgia. He just rented a place. He's
Good for him.
and he actually just came in last night around midnight. So he's here for the weekend.
Go say hello to him.
I will. I'll make sure that I tell him you said hello.
I like your color combination, Hassan, with the pink.
Thank you so much.
Similar to me.
Real man wore pink. Yeah.
The HR director is right over there looking at me.
Well, that's not my problem.
Eat already?
I did. Thank you. That's actually very good.
Not a good breakfast.
There you go.
The original plant-based protein, that's all I saw. That's it.
I was wondering the same thing. If they have later.
I'm an almond fan.
Yeah. I was thinking you know it, but I can't get it. You okay, Marie?
I'm okay. I'm just some water.
Should be some up there. Water?
Yeah, I got cold water.
Yes, I'm good. We're about to kick off in a minute. I'm just waiting for everyone to come. All right, so we'll be all set. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Thanks. Thanks, Coach.
No.
How are you doing? How are things at the business?
Are you guys have fun?
You guys did a
Got a great boss, did I tell you that?
I've heard rumor to that effect.
You guys have fun.
That's the word on the street, anyway.
Yeah, I try my best.
We know we do.
Must confirm the rumors are true.
All right, there you go. Straight from the horse.
All right, everybody ready? We're good? Calling to order the goal-setting meeting scheduled for Delray Beach, May 12, 2023. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Petrolia?
Here.
Okay, sorry. Mayor Petrolia.
Here.
Mr. Frankel.
Present.
Mr. Bolston.
Present.
Ms. Burns.
Here.
Mr. Long.
Present.
Michelle, would you like to take over, or are we going to start with Mr. Moore? Okay. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the executive leadership team, and of course the illustrious City Commission and Mayor. Thank you all for convening. As the Mayor articulated in the introductory comments, the purpose of today's gathering is the annual goal-setting session of the City Commission to provide many opportunities for ancillary direction as it relates to the upcoming proposed budget process, as well as a myriad of other opportunities to get us to where we need to be as a municipality in terms of an organization and as a community. We have many individuals in attendance as well. Some of our external partners are joining us as well. Likewise, we have the privilege of bringing on board an external facilitator. The process of selecting a facilitator for this year's exercise was quite involved in that we formally interviewed several consulting firms, and the result of that was the selection of Ms. Michelle Ferguson of the Raptelis Group, formerly of Novak Consulting, of an organization I'm fairly familiar with given my previous background in local government prior to joining the city of Delray Beach, Florida. Ms. Ferguson has a solid background. Prior to beginning her consultancy career about 18 years ago now, she had enjoyed a number of solid experiences in local government, including having served as an assistant city manager in Overland Park, Kansas, as well as an assistant county administrator in Arlington County, Virginia, which is fantastic because, of course, she's quite knowledgeable relative to the dynamics associated with local government leadership, and she's been able to make many contributions in that particular realm. A native of Chicago, she is a graduate of Loyola University Chicago, undergraduate degree in political science, as well as a Master of Public Administration from the University of Kansas. With that, we are extremely pleased that you've been able to join us for the rest of the day, and there will be opportunities to engage and follow up and deliverables as a result of today's exercise. At this time, Madam Mayor, I would turn it over to Michelle Ferguson. However, I think it would be appropriate for public introductions of members of the executive leadership team. With the roll call, everyone's familiar with who the Mayor and City Commission are, so that was accomplished. So what I would like to do, Ms. Ferguson, allow for introductions, including two of our partner organizations at the end of this side of the room, and we will go down the line, and from there, the floor is all yours.
Great.
So I'd like to be, I'm sorry?
I'd like to do that as in expectations, because I'd love to hear as we go around for everybody, and it'll come back to the mayor and commission as well. Love to hear a little bit about your expectation for today. Not just who you are and what you do for the city, but what expectations you have for today. So we'll. The manager volunteered you all down here at the end, so we'll go ahead, and I'm going to ask you just to tell us who you are and share with us an expectation that you have for today's session.
All right. Renee Jadising, I'm the Executive Director of the Delray Beach Community Redevelopment Agency. I'm just looking to support however we can as normally we do as a partner of the cities.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Laura Simon, I'm the Executive Director of the Downtown Development Authority. And expectations as we are here today. I can't believe it's been a year, but it's great to be with the city as the downtown team and how we work together collaboratively and hope to see some really just open dialogue and where we're headed for our future.
Good morning. I'm Sam Mita, Director of Parks and Recreation. My expectation kind of follows our past goal setting. I find it to be a very team-building activity. So one of my expectations is just getting the entire team together and kind of focused on that same vision.
You want me to jump in?
No.
Continue.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Kateri Johnson, City Clerk, and my expectation today is to learn what the vision is for everyone and just be a part of making it happen. So that's my goal for today.
Good morning, Hassan Hajimiri, Utilities Director. My expectation is hopefully the commissioners become more familiar with the utilities operation.
Spoken like a true utilities director.
Yes.
Yep.
And you all
And-
can't take that when we get to other directors.
Yes. Thank you. Utilities has been most of our infrastructures are underground, so nobody get to see what we do. So I do appreciate if they have the opportunity to do so.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hugh Dunkley. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and my expectation is actually to come up with the funding source for all of what we conjure up today.
Like a true CFO, right?
But, exactly, but in a more realistic sense, I do hope for us to have a roadmap for the next year from an operating standpoint, exactly what it is that the City Commission prioritizes and that we could use to kind of move us forward as a city.
Good morning. Kevin Green, Assistant Chief for the Fire Department, here representing Chief Tommy, who unfortunately couldn't be here today as he's returning from Hawaii.
Yeah, we all want to be where he's at,
Yeah,
I think, actually.
you and me both. So for the fire department, for me personally, this is my first time to go through a goal-setting session, so I hope to learn something from this and how the fire department can better fit into the city goals and objectives. I mean, I think most people know what the fire department does on the grand scale, but there's a lot of little social things that we do as well, and so, those are things that in many cases cost money, and so hope to be able to explain that and have a better understanding how we can achieve those goals.
Thank you. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Terrence Moore, Office of the City Manager. Succinctly, my expectation is all to work collaboratively to achieve definitive goals and objectives to move the city of Delray Beach forward, short-term, mid-term, long-term considerations in that regard. Looking forward to it. Thank you again.
Vice Mayor Ryan Boylston, and my goal today is to set a collaborative tone and a joint focus on getting back to fundamentals of running a successful city.
Hi, Angela Boone. Angela Burns. My expectation is just to learn today as a newcomer to collaborate with my colleagues and staff to see what the priorities of the city are going forward and to see if our comp plan is working and if we met marks on that comp plan and to enjoy being a student as opposed to the teacher.
Mayor Shelley Petrolia, I'm hoping that we are going to create the vision and chart the course for the future of Delray Beach.
Good morning, Adam Frankel. My expectation is to see what we're going to do for the upcoming year.
Deputy Vice Mayor Rob Long. As always, I'm just going to be echoing what everyone else says. This is this is my first goal setting. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to learn a lot, and seeing all these leaders of all these different departments here together, I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to make sure that we're all kind of rowing in the same direction on some sort of strategic roadmap, which hopefully we can begin to establish here today. So I'm excited.
My name is Lynn Jellin. I'm the city attorney. My expectation is to listen to the wonderful creative ideas that these amazing department heads are going to share, getting clear direction from the commission as to what the vision is going to be going forward, and making sure that it's legal.
Hi, yes. I'm Dwayne DeAndre, the Human Resources Director, and I'm excited to hear what the commission sets as the goals and then to try and understand how the HR department can help achieve those goals moving forward.
Hi, I'm Anthea Geniotis. I'm in charge of Development Services, which in the city is both planning and building. I think what we need to be sure we walk away from today with is a clear priority, what the prioritizations are. There's so many things we want to do. There's only so much bandwidth. We are booming right now, which means the private applications are dominating our team's focus. So out of everything in the comp plan and other things are so broad, we do have a new board, and so what really is the priority for the upcoming year? So we know where to focus our energies.
Good morning. I'm Gina Carter. I'm the Director of Communications, and what I hope to get from today is a clear understanding of what the Commission thinks is important, what the vision is for the city, and what all of the other directors are planning and envisioning for their own departments, and then strategize a way for us and my team to communicate that vision and those initiatives to our residents.
Good morning. I'm Russ Major. I'm the Chief of Police. I'm really looking forward to how public safety plays a role in everybody that's in this room. There's a huge expectation, obviously, for public safety, but integrating that with every level within the room, meaning private and public, is a huge expectation and a very daunting task. But I'm looking forward to the technology in police work as it relates to everybody in the room and how the city wants to move forward. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janai Bowens. I'm the Education and Workforce Development Coordinator. So this is also my first goal-setting session. I'm looking forward to learn more about the strategies and the goals of the city and how my role as an Education and Workforce Coordinator ties into each department and what I can continuously do to drive those goals forward.
Good morning, Sam Walthour, Neighborhood and Community Services. I'm just looking forward to the discussion around the vision and aspirations for the city and how this department, Neighborhood and Community Services, will fit into that equation.
I'm Jay Stacy. I'm the IT Director. My expectation today is just to get to know the Commission better. We don't really get a chance to talk all that much. And this is one of our few times throughout the year we really get to hear from them and find out what their goals are and make sure that my department is aligned with those goals.
Good morning, I'm Peggy Cadeau. This is also my first goal-setting meeting. I am the purchasing manager, and my expectations for today is to see what quality improvements that we can incorporate and within the purchasing department, and also is there any innovative technology tools or functions that we can also incorporate within that division as well.
Good morning, Jeff Forrest, Assistant City Manager. My expectation for today is that the commission will get a great opportunity to speak with one another because those opportunities are so limited under the laws of the state, and to work with staff to formulate their vision for the city for the upcoming year and perhaps a little beyond that, so that we can best focus all of the city's resources on those things that matter to the commission, and so we can move those things and have them in a efficient manner, and we're not spending resources or time on things that aren't of great importance.
Well, thank you all very much for sharing those expectations. You know, as several of you talked about, if we were to go around this room, there are a number of you in this room from both the staff's perspective as well as the commission's perspective, for which this is your first opportunity to have a goal-setting session like this. And as the manager so eloquently stated some of my background, I've had the privilege, really, of working with elected officials and staff across the country to do just this kind of work. And one of the things that I have learned in all of my time doing that is this time is so critically important to dedicate the opportunity to really listen to each other, to talk about this community that I know all of you love. I've had the opportunity to speak with each of the elected officials as well as a number of the department directors. And hopefully the commission heard as the directors shared their expectations, they're hungry for your vision because they want to make sure that they work in lockstep with you to implement that vision. And so taking this time today is such an important opportunity to really begin to articulate what that looks like. So all of the people in this room, those that are sitting at the table, and I know we've got staff at other parts in this room, can really be supportive to make this community even better than it is. In terms of today, I always like to start with some norms, just in terms of how we're going to operate over the course of this day. You have an agenda in front of you. We'll talk about that in a moment. But whenever I work with groups, I always like to set a few little operating norms that I think are the things that, as we know, we kind of learn in kindergarten, but are always a good thing to be reminded of when we're working in a group setting. So first and foremost, I ask that you each listen to each other with respect. And that means something different today, in today's world. Respect is something that, respect and civility, we don't always see as prominently as I think many of us would hope. And so this is a real opportunity to engage in active listening and to do so with respect. Be attentive to the speaker. This is also a good opportunity to remind you of hot mics. Rob and I were talking earlier. I'm going to make sure that when I move out of this room to use the facilities, that I turn my lavalier mic off. I think all of the mics were on when you came in. Hopefully you have turned them off if you don't want to be heard. So that is just the PSA for this morning. Make sure that you be mindful of those hot mics if you're having conversation, or just slurping soup or whatever we may have for lunch. Next, you may hear things today in this conversation, both from the elected official's perspective or even from staff's perspective, that you may not necessarily agree with. That's okay. What I ask of today is that you disagree agreeably. This is an opportunity. We are not taking votes. We're going to strive for consensus during these conversations. Certainly we're going to strive for consensus among the elected officials. But as I said, we're not taking votes. And I think it's a great opportunity to maybe try something on that may not be something that you normally think about. Maybe an idea that isn't one that is your natural inclination. Just try it on for today. See how it fits. I think there's a great opportunity to look for those places of consensus in that way. As we strive for consensus, I always like to remind people of the power of if and. I firmly believe, and I know I've shared this with some of you, I firmly believe that there is so much more, particularly in the public sector and in local governments, in building communities that we agree upon. There's so much more that we agree upon. However, it's those things that we disagree on that cause the most noise. If we change things around and focused more on those opportunities of agreement, imagine how many things we can accomplish. I know, so I think as the manager said, I actually live in North Carolina. I live in Durham. And I came in last night, and I had an opportunity before I came in this morning here to drive around a little bit. And it's amazing to see the activity in this community. There's so much to be done here. There's so much being done. And if we focused on those areas of agreement, imagine how much more you can accomplish. I also know from my conversations with all of you, there's a lot that you all want to accomplish. I think you all have lots of ideas, important ideas. You have staff that is at the edge of their seats, ready to follow, but they need that direction. And they need that prioritization, because doing everything, you all know, if everything is a priority, then nothing gets done. And it doesn't get done in the way that is deliberate for this community. There are so many things that have happened in Delray Beach that were the result of dedication and planning. And you all have the opportunity, as you strive for consensus and begin to develop the collective priorities and visions of this commission, to plant the seeds for things that may not come to fruition during your time in office, but that are going to have generational impacts on this community. That's incredibly powerful. And so I will remind you in the course of today to be positive and realistic. Be candid and honest and open about those possibilities. And finally, to be bold, because this is that opportunity to be bold. I sense it in my conversations with so many of you. I sense it in my conversations with staff as well as the elected officials, that you all feel that you are really at that tipping point of making significant changes that are going to impact this community for generations. That's the power. That was very powerful. That was very powerful. Yeah. Like I said, all right, I just got like goosebumps there. So it might have been shock too. That may be it, not goosebumps. So I'm gonna ask you, and I'm gonna push you to think boldly and broadly. It is so hard to do that. I know, and we'll talk about roles later this morning, as you all are, as the elected officials, I know that the constituent calls, the requests that you get, the emails, and being stopped in the grocery store, those things are going to continue to happen a lot. People have a lot of expectations for what you and for what the city can do for them. It is hard to get out of those weeds. But today, I'm going to force you out of the weeds. I'm going to force you to think more strategically at a higher level. I know in your past retreats and past goal-setting sessions, you've spent a lot of time talking about specific projects, and those are important. You have opportunities to do that coming up through your budget process, as the manager mentioned. We're not doing that today. I'm going to keep pushing you up, and I may annoy you a little bit, but as you get into those weeds, this is the opportunity to really, somebody said, set the tone. Set that tone and that longer-term vision for what are those key priorities. All those projects are not going to go away. They're still going to be part of what you talk about during your budget deliberations and your capital project deliberations. But for today, I want you to think high level. What are those bold, high-level priorities that are going to move the needle in this community? Those projects are important, and those have significant impact on the lives of the residents and your stakeholders. But for today, we're going to push you to think long-term and think boldly and come to consensus about what that looks like. You've got trained, professional, dedicated, motivated staff who can handle the details. What they can't do, they can't set that vision. That is solely the responsibility of the 5 of you sitting here. And I think what's so important about these types of goal-setting opportunities is to do those things that nobody else in this community can do. And setting that vision for the future of this community, nobody else in that community can do that except the 5 of you. All those details are going to be the responsibility of your professional staff. They're great at it. They've been trained to do it. That's what they've been hired to do. But they can't set that vision. That's where you all come in. That's your critical role. That's your lasting impact. That's your legacy on this community. So those are some of the key norms for today. Do I have consensus that you all are willing to play by these for the day?
Yes.
Anything else anyone wants to add to that list?
If I may?
Yeah.
Michelle Ferguson. So I'd like to formally recognize two other members of the team who
Please.
are now joining us. First of all, our Director of Public Works, Missy Barletto. You mentioned the capital improvement programming process, so her department is very intricate in terms of engaging with all departments associated with that process. So she's arriving at this time. And we also have Mary Wasney on behalf of the Office of Sustainability and Resiliency, who's here on behalf of Sustainability Officer Ken Edwards. So I just wish to have them to be acknowledged, and we can go from there.
Thank you and welcome. And I think the other side of the room feels better because they were feeling a little cramped, and now that we got two more over here, it feels a little more balanced in the day. The other thing that I didn't write on the norms that I really think is important is I also want you to have a little bit of fun today. You know, one of the things I heard in your expectations was you all don't have an opportunity to have good conversation like this, even among department heads and with the elected officials. And so this is an opportunity to be a little more relaxed. We will take formal breaks. I want you all to be comfortable. If you need to move chairs around and stretch your legs at any point, please do that. This is your day to be comfortable. Like I said, we will take breaks. We will have lunch. You will be well fed and well hydrated throughout the day. But I think this is really hard work. It's also really fun work, and it should be. And you getting to know the team, not just among the elected officials, but also with your staff, is a unique opportunity. And I hope that you all have that opportunity to engage with each other as we take breaks and as we have lunch and all of those things. As the manager said, we are here technically until 5 o'clock. I think it's really mean to keep people till 5 o'clock on a Friday on a really beautiful day. I will just say that up front. But there's a lot of work to do today. So we will move as expeditiously as possible, but do the work that's important to do. You all have agendas in front of you, and this is the part of the agenda where I speak slower for those elected officials who maybe didn't realize that I asked them to do a little bit of homework before coming in. Because one of the things that we want to hear from each of you is a little bit about what you believe about this community. And there have been times where I've had elected officials that I've asked to, or not just elected officials, let's be fair, it's not just elected officials, who I've had homework to do prior to retreats that maybe they just opened the agenda when they got into the room. That happens. We get really, really busy. There's no blame about that. But so I always like to just remind people, if you haven't looked at your agenda for the elected officials, this is an opportunity to do that. And I should also say, to help maybe alleviate any or mitigate any concerns that the department heads may have, you are not being put on the spot to make a presentation today. I heard some concern about that earlier, so I just want to be clear. There are no PowerPoints being shared of a staff, so don't worry about that. If you are frantically looking at the agenda and worried that maybe you were supposed to prepare a presentation, that perhaps you didn't. So in terms of the agenda today, we will spend some time now hearing from each of the elected officials about what you believe about this community. Then I believe that in order to set that vision and to work collaboratively as an effective governing body, I use that term body very purposefully because you all are a body. In order to work effectively together, there are lots of roles that you as elected officials will play. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about those roles and playing a little bit with those roles as well too. And then we'll start to get into the vision and really what you all hope to be true in the next 10 years. I mentioned earlier that this is an opportunity to not only get some things done, because I appreciate and respect the fact that you all were elected to your office to get some things done. You also have that opportunity to plant seeds, and we'll talk about what that vision looks like so that you can begin to plant those seeds today that may be appropriate in order to make that vision come to fruition and come to reality. And then we'll start to really identify what those key focus areas are, what those key priority areas are in a big picture perspective, and begin to define that so that as you move into your budget process, your staff has that information to use as they put together those budget recommendations that come before you. And hopefully what you will see is that the budget will reflect those things that you all talk about as being those key priorities. Any questions about that before we get started? Okay. So now I'm going to invite the mayor to go either first or last. But what I've asked, and for those of you in the room too, I think it's important just to share, what I've asked the elected officials to do is really to take a couple of minutes to share what they believe about this community. It's based on the Edward R. Murrow NPR segment on this, I believe, which really was intended to help build community and share stories. And so I think it's important as you all, the elected officials, work together to come to consensus about a vision, to hear what's important to each of you. What brought you to this place? What brought you not just physically to Delray Beach, but what brought you to this role that you choose, which I believe is such a critical, important role. What brought you to this role? What keeps you here? And what's precious about this community to you? So again, I will invite the mayor to go first or last.
Very good. Thank you so much. And I don't know if I did this right, but I'm just going to give you what I put together.
And I should also say at the outset, there's no wrong answer.
All right.
And
That's a good thing for me then,
yes.
since I'm starting it off. So do we do it in the Edward R. Murrow voice? Okay. Just to make it fun. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so I believe Delray Beach, occupying only 16 square miles, is small enough to manage the individual wants and needs of individuals, but yet large enough to offer all the benefits of a much larger city. And I think a lot of the people in this room do that very well. I believe that the future of Delray Beach will be determined by courageous, good citizens willing to step up to protect this special town of ours. And I believe those citizens who are bold and caring will lead with honor and integrity and not be crippled under the heavy weight of power, greed, and corruption. I believe Delray will suffer if outsiders and unvested interests march our town towards a future absent our authenticity. The people who desire to keep Delray's integrity intact must remain vocal and vigilant. I believe in our future and on the infrastructure planned, including a new water treatment plant, a new police facility, there he is, improved fire stations, a newly renovated community park with new facilities, and a renewed and active cultural arts center that welcomes everyone. Free entry into the Cornell Museum was a shift towards a new beginning. It opened the doors of art to the masses, some who felt uninvited, and others who were financially unable to enter those doors. I believe Delray Beach has just scratched the surface of the needed updating and necessary repairs for all the areas of our infrastructure. When first elected, there were few plans in place and little interest in these unsexy but vital community needs that have now become our priority. I believe that the 5 historic districts are sacred ground and not lands of opportunities for new development. I believe these 5 distinct and very significant locations should be preserved and protected as physical, historic links to our past. I believe the districts tell others and remind us of who we are and where we came from. The survival of these districts differentiates Delray Beach from other townships who no longer can point to their history still standing. I believe Delray's future has a place for all as we set goals to build more affordable housing, adding 10 single-family homes at Corey Jones Isles and 20 more at Carver Estates, and to provide affordable retail and workspace happening right now at the old Sticks building on 5th and the cottages just down the road. And Delray preserved and prioritized the affordability of low-income senior living. Examples are the 401 senior housing units that were slated to go to market value at the Lakes of Delray Apartments, and the newer housing authority buildings of the courts. As we continue to focus on the needs of the many who desire to live and work in Delray Beach, we all benefit. I believe Delray's future must be accountable to its constituents and operate from a substance over form. In their absence, we are inefficient, lost, and doomed to repeat past mistakes to the detriment of those we serve. I believe Delray's future will demand difficult decisions be made by the elected body to ensure that we are delivering a better future for those who follow in our footsteps. I believe Delray has a bright future, especially with community engagement. It is obvious to me that the people who have chosen to call this place home or have chosen to operate a business from here recognize how unique and how special Delray is and feel privileged to work and live here. And finally, I believe Delray's small town feel and big town vibe has a unique and eclectic population of citizens maintaining its heartbeat. And they are what makes Delray special. That's what I believe.
Who'd like to go next?
Maybe the vice mayor? I don't know if we're going in order.
You know what? I'm going to punt to Rob because he always tends to go last because it's just your order on the day is. So I'm going to give you a chance to go first this time.
All right, cool.
I believe I'm going to agree with everything you said.
So I didn't include the personal bio part, so I can sort of ad-lib that. I just jotted down some notes. So, like I said, there's no wrong answer. Sure, I'll humor the group though anyway. So my mother was a caseworker for the welfare office where I came from, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, weather capital of the world. And my dad was a civil rights attorney. He had his own small practice. And I found out recently that my grandfather was actually mayor at one point. I didn't know that. So I guess you could say public service is in my blood. And it's just such a privilege to me now to be in this position with this city that I fell in love with 13 years ago and be able to work with all of you to hopefully drive the direction of where the future of this city's going. So that being said, I believe Delray Beach is a destination and that identity was hard-earned by city commissions, community leaders, business leaders, and residents over several decades. I believe we inherited all the great things that come with being one of Palm Beach County's premier cities, but also some of the less desirable side effects of that, which we'll call growing pains, which are parking difficulties, inefficient traffic patterns, disagreements over the ideal frequency, scope, and location of our special events, and development that isn't always compatible with its surroundings. I believe these growing pains have unfortunately led to wedges among our population. And I do believe that we're still a city divided, but we don't have to be. I see so many opportunities to collaborate as a community as we begin down a new, exciting path together. I believe Delray has incredibly talented, hardworking, loyal staff, and as a commission, it should be our priority to empower them, buffer them from the ebb and flow of politics, and help foster pride for our great city. I believe that just because Delray Beach is evolving does not mean that we have to lose our village charm or our commitment to preserving Delray's history. But that will take a strategic, visionary, nuanced conversation to curate the future of our city. And most of all, it will take collaboration. So I'll end with a quick quote from a commissioner who once held the seat that I was elected to, Bill Bathurst, and who knows where he stole this quote from.
One of his cousins.
Yeah, right. So it's simply, growth is inevitable, progress is a choice. And I think that quote encapsulates our city right now and the charge of our commission. Thank you.
All right, You want me to follow?
You'll be better than me.
All right. Well, I'll jump in because you know what? I didn't know that about Rob, about your parents, and so I grew up in a family that was not political at all, and I never thought I'd be in a seat like this. But I did grow up with public servants. My grandfather and his brother were firefighters and a fire chief in Pompano Beach, and then my father disappointed them and joined the Boca Raton Police Department, where he's been for 30 years. So public service has always been a big part of our family. And when I moved to Delray Beach, I really even couldn't believe I was moving to Delray Beach, because when growing up in South Florida, you came to Delray once a year for Delray Affair, and then that was really the only reason. But my grandparents moved to Delray, and while I was away at college, I would come back and I would visit them, and I was like, wow, Delray's really got it going on. And so when I moved here, and my wife and I decided to purchase a home here and to raise our family here, I thought I should get involved. I should find out how Delray did this. And there's so many great stories that I'm sure a lot of you know in regards to the community coming together and forming all of these different committees and having these public charrettes and saving Old School Square, or ensuring that Atlantic Avenue didn't get expanded, and saving our downtown. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be here, I should probably, serve. And so I went to all the different boards, and I joined the Pineapple Grove Arts District Board. And I was thinking about it this morning, because I've told the story a million times, but I don't think I've ever included this part, which was what was really interesting, and I think we need to do more of in Delray Beach, is, I joined that board, and they welcomed me. And I came with new ideas, and maybe I was a little brash, but they channeled my energy, right? They said, he's got some good new ideas, right? And let us invest in you. Let us tell you how we got here so that you appreciate that and honor that, because there was a lot of work, Ryan, before you got here. And you need to know about that. And that was Mr. Fisher, Gene Fisher. And so I think that was so important to have that foundation first before bringing forward new ideas, right? Before bringing forward new initiatives and channeling that energy. So I'm really hoping that we have more of that conversation, even here today, in revisiting our many plans that we have. The community has told us what they wanted in many documents. So, when I think about like what I believe, well, I believe what the comprehensive plan says in this position, because it really isn't what Ryan Boylston believes. It's what Vice Mayor Boylston believes. And I just go to the comprehensive plan, which says Delray Beach is a vibrant, award-winning, all-American city composed of a charming downtown village by the sea and a dynamic, diverse neighborhoods. We proudly celebrate our historic heritage and look forward to a bright future. Our goal is to provide a high quality of life that is healthy and welcoming for residents, visitors, and business owners, which I believe both Commissioner Long and the mayor pretty much said those same things, just in different words, right? So today, what can we do to make sure that 2023, 2024, the next year before we're all sitting here again, what can we do to make steps towards that direction? And so I thought of three main things. One, empower everyone around this table. Empower you to do your job. We have the best team. I think we have the best team of any city, and we need to leverage your skills and talents as much as possible. And the way we can help you is minimize distractions. And I think, Mr. Orrish, you kind of mentioned that at the beginning, which was we really need to focus on what's important. And that's why my theme for today is back to fundamentals. I don't mind if people stop me in the grocery store. I really enjoy that, actually. My wife doesn't, but I enjoy it. And I really enjoy all the phone calls and emails. But I want to shift the topic of those conversations. I don't want to have conversations about things that we shouldn't have to think about, right? The things that should just be done in our city, and have conversations about the next thing that we should be doing, the improvements that we should be making. So I just want to shift those topics. And I want to focus on moving forward. There tends to be in all government, I think, a paralysis by analysis. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what, that's not perfect, and no matter how long we work on it, it's never going to be perfect. So, but it's 90% of the way there. Let's move forward on it. Let's get to the next thing. And I think every team member would appreciate that direction. So that's my goal: is back to fundamentals and empowering our team.
I'll go on to Adam. You can take up the Okay. So my homework was not done in a formal setting. You know, teachers, we don't ever follow the rules. We just give them out. So, but the one thing that I read was about, start with the story. And, my story is about community. My story is about neighborhoods, neighbors, and civility. I can remember, growing up here in Delray. I moved here when I was 8 years old, and it was about community. On the weekends, people were sitting on the porch, eating their supper. Kids were running around playing in sand lots. We spent the summers eating mangoes off the trees, oranges, blackberries, and it was just, life was just great. And, my children didn't get all of the pleasures of childhood as I did, because things changed. The orange trees went away for canker or whatever. Blackberry trees, the land was taken for, more housing. So they didn't get to have that experience, but the sense of community never went away. For the most part, people are good. We have a bad apple in every bunch, but for the most part, people were good. We worked together as a community to make things right for everybody, and community just it just feels right, and it means loving and caring about your neighbors. Loving and caring about what happens to you, not only to you and your family, to everybody in your community. When someone's child or mother is hurt or sick, that it's also, that's your mother or child. So, community comes back. I love Delray, and I know that all of you love Delray, and that's one thing about, I believe that everybody here loves Delray. The door, we don't have a lock on the doors to keep people from coming, so they're coming. And because it's just a great place to be. Before my husband was killed, he tried to take me away from Delray many times. But I believe that Delray is paradise. This is paradise. I tell all my relatives, you should come check it out. It's paradise. So I believe that this city has great future for everybody. I think there's enough in it so that everybody can experience a sustainable life, wealth. Whatever it has to come. I believe that Delray is always an all-American city, whether we get it documented and have the plaques on the wall or not. I just think that I have relatives all over. I've traveled extensively, and this is the best place. I just, we have our issues like any city, but I know that it is not beyond working out if we all work together. I remember times when we had our charrettes, and it wasn't just for the sake of talking, it was for the sake of working things out so that it applied to everybody, so that everybody felt included and not excluded or disrespected. I did write some things down, and I never read what I write, but let me see if I can catch up and see if okay. So I believe that Delray has a future for everyone. And I said already that I believe that Delray wealth building is available to all. Delray will continue to be a destination place. We have a combination of the land and the history and its people, which is what makes Delray great and unique. Of course, I love the beach, the cultural experience here, the art galleries. I already said the community. I think that Delray has a future of what I would like to see is for us to figure out what to do with our schools so that we have a place where people come because we have the best schools. I am just concerned about what education, what effect it's going to have and impact that it's going to have. We already have a low educational turnout in some areas of our city, and I'm just concerned about if we don't get ahead of it, that it will continue. So I would really like to see, what are we going to do as a community to make sure that we take care of our schools, and also a workforce, helping our community be able to get into the market of being hired, educating. We're working on a technical center, but what other things can we do to enhance that to make sure that people are earning livable wages, that they're able to take care of their families? When we do all of those things, then safety is not an issue because everyone, when you're pushed against the wall, you do things that you don't necessarily think you would do. So I think that Delray has a potential to make sure that all of its citizens are taken care of and that we care about each other and that we work together to solve problems. I'm looking forward to just moving forward to make our city just greater than it is, and we are already known nationwide. We are a model city, and I would like for it to continue that way. And I think I'll be quiet now and let Adam talk.
You guys said it all. No, I'm just joking. I did my homework because Dolores made me. And, I looked at this, and the first thing I thought is I have colleagues and I have ladies and gentlemen around the table that are much better visionaries than I am. And when we spoke via Zoom, I told you that. I'm very analytical. If you give me two choices, I'm great at that. So I decided to focus on the part where it says tell a story. So where I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, my mother was a teacher and a media specialist for 31 years at inner city schools in downtown Toledo, and my dad had a criminal defense practice in downtown Toledo. So I had a very diverse growing up, which I think was very good. I first came to Delray Beach when I was 12 years old. My grandparents had a place in Shady Woods, and then later on in Rainberry Bay off Lake Ida Road. So I've been a loving member of the city of Delray Beach for many, many years. And I just always remember the great times where my grandfather in particular, but my grandparents would drop me off at Delray Beach at the Holiday Inn. I'd walk across the street, play volleyball from about 9 to 5 every day, be burnt to a crisp. But that's why I loved it, because the beach is great. And I think the city has strived to keep the characteristics of the actual beach very similar, very quiet. We have a rec zone where you can play volleyball and do other activities, but I think that's one of the shining examples of the city. In 2009, I ran and was successfully elected to my first term city commission, and I look at the norms that are on the board. Listen with respect, disagree agreeably, stress for consensus, and be positive and realistic. In 2009, we did that. When Mayor Woody McDuffie and Gary Eliopoulos and Fred Fetzer and Mac Bernard and I were sitting at a table, we didn't always vote 5-0. We would always state our opinions. We'd listen attentively, treat everyone with respect. We'd have a vote, and then generally we'd go to Dada's afterwards and get a drink or have a meal. That's how we operated. Then 2012 happened. It wasn't like that anymore. The city became very divisive, and I know we're supposed to be positive, but I'm just giving a history lesson. The city became divisive, disagreeable. Staff members were treated poorly when they came to the dais. They were embarrassed, in my opinion. And the good part is, after the recent election, I think we're going to go back to that. I think staff members are going to be treated with kindness and respect. I think the degrees of micromanagement won't be there anymore. And I think executive members and all employees of the city will be able to do their jobs. I'm looking forward to this year. I think it will be the exact opposite of my last year of my first term, where it was just chaos. I really, really have high hopes with my colleagues, and I'm looking forward to a great day today. Thanks.
Thank you all for sharing a little bit about what you believe about this community. I believe that, as we've already talked about, this is hard work. Building community isn't for everybody because it takes a lot of energy and time and thought and dedication and perseverance to create the community that you all want to create. As you all heard the conversations around what the elected officials believe, what reactions do you have? What struck you?
Good morning, everybody. I just want to introduce myself because I didn't get to say my vision for the day also, so it kind of falls into this. And I don't want to overstep my place, too. I'm filling in for Kent right now. But every single person that spoke this morning, love your visions, love the direction, love figuring out what we want to do for the city. I am a little saddened that the word sustainability did not come out of anybody's mouth. So, you know, it was mentioned that growth is expected, progress is a choice. I think sustainability needs to be in the forefront in order for us to be successful. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Other reactions? I'm curious from the elected officials, as you heard each other's thoughts, anything stick out to you?
When I was listening to Commissioner Burns give such a detailed description of when you were a kid, you know, I've realized that a lot of Delray residents have that moment in time that they would have froze our city. And maybe that's yours. Maybe that's your moment. I know what my moment is. But I think rather than trying to do that and freeze it in any time, which is impossible because all my kids would be 5, because I think 5 is the perfect age to freeze them at. But what a shame, right? What a shame it would be, because, yeah, you lose some things, but you gain some things. And, you know, I could put a list of things that I would have missed out on, right, if I would have frozen Delray in 2011, right? I would have missed out on a lot, right? So what made that special about that time? Right? Was it really the oranges or blueberry? Was it really the fruit?
It was
if
the mangoes.
Was,
it was the mangoes. I
mangoes.
think.
Well, that's
stuck
okay.
in my head.
We still have plenty of those, right? But if let's say it was the fruit, but I don't think it was. But if it was, let's bring back the fruit. But I think it was just that feeling, right? That community feeling, the kids running around, and that. So let's focus on that. How do we can keep that? We can focus on almost, you know, ensuring that is part of our community as we move forward, instead of focusing on the parts that you can't freeze. You got to move forward. So that's something that kind of, you know, hit me.
The homework assignment, and again, I was generally familiar with the homework assignment assigned to the elected officials based on our individual discussion and preparation in this regard. And succinctly, this was a wonderful opportunity for the executive leadership team to get to know the elected officials a little bit better, number one. Number two, coinciding with their thoughts and visions for the city of Delray Beach and the genesis of their thoughts and visions for the city of Delray Beach. I thought that was a fantastic opportunity to engage and connect and hopefully provides perspective as to why we are where we are as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I guess it was. I was taking notes. I was listening. What's really cool to me is how much I think there was so much agreement, right? And they all come from different places. We all know that, right, from a perspective wise, and so do all we. And I feel like that's pretty much exactly how I feel looking at this thing, right? And most of us. And what's really unique about Delray that everybody kind of touched on is there is so many different things that are so cool to so many people, right? So whether it's your sense of community, whether it's the beach, the events, our downtown, like it really has everything, and it's just an amazing, amazing town. And we all get caught up in the job, the day-to-day, and it's everything each one of you touched on is that we have to make sure we remind ourselves, and nobody else sees that, right? And that's like every visitor, everybody in the town, like they all love this place, and we all get caught up with whether or not a trash can was overflowing this morning, like just a random idea, right? Like we literally get into that place sometimes, and it's hard to get out of that. But when you get all together in a room and we all start like just openly talking, everybody's saying the same thing. And to me, that was the takeaway: is like, wow, what an amazing city! It literally has everything for everybody, and we all want to see it just keep going.
I want to piggyback on that because I agree with you 100%. I talk to a lot of people. A lot of people come up to me just because I'm the mayor. They think you're running the place. We're not. I'm not. It's 5 of us, and then, of course, the entire city of staff. But I do get a lot of people that come up to me, and they say exactly that. This is the most amazing town. They don't really focus on the things that we're actually having to focus on in order to be able to make it amazing. And sometimes things do get out of control, and then we go and correct them. And I think that's really important. But I also have to, what is it called? Disagree agreeably. Back in my colleague, Commissioner Frankel, he was here before I was. So he had a little better understanding of what was going on prior to. I came in after. He was here for, I would say 2 years. I was in 2013. So coming in, it wasn't utopia. We had green screen technology. Jay, imagine that, 2013. Green screen technology. Our phone system was a mess. There were so many things that were left behind. There was no emphasis on infrastructure, and we're paying for it now. So I know that there was some undressing that was done, and I didn't agree with that. It was a previous mayor to me. It was very difficult for some of the staff. They went through a lot. But it was a change that had to be made, and as hard as that was to do, it did change the trajectory so that we could grow and become a better town. We weren't bidding contracts, illegally not bidding contracts. That's the kind of thing that basically was in court proven. So that's the kind of thing that was taking place then. And when you have that type of system working for you and you come in and you have no idea, it is difficult. And people aren't happy about some of those changes because maybe there was benefits. I don't know. But I do know that what we did do in that first 3 or 4 years was try to make it so that we could actually become and run more like a city and not, an old-timey fashion place where everybody talked to everybody and went out for drinks afterwards and discussed business when we're under sunshine and things like that were going on. But everything changed at that point in time. The other thing that also changed that I want to make sure that we're aware of is that the entire system of politics changed from the top down, became meaner. Nobody was really respecting anybody all the way from the top down. It happens today. I think somebody said to me, this town is probably one of the toughest, nastiest towns that they've ever seen in politics. And that's sad, because it really shouldn't be. As great as we are, as much as we shine outside to the public, that's really the way we should be, and we shouldn't stand for it. I think that that's something that we need to change as a group.
Yeah, that's the good news, that you all in this room have the opportunity to make those impactful changes.
I've known most of you, I don't even know, I don't want to say how long, but a long time. And I think it's so interesting to hear your stories and your perspectives as to how you got here. Because I think at the end of the day, we're all here because we want to make the place better than when we got here. And, you have this staff that looks up to you, that sees, these bright, innovative leaders that really put themselves out there. Your job is not easy. Frankly, none of us would want your job. But, you all have a vision, and you have this background that you bring to the dais every 2 weeks that gives us your perspective, why you're making the decisions that you're making. And, we value that. And we value, the autonomy that you give us, the grace that you give us to give us our perspective. And, you don't always listen to us, but you give us the time to, hear our thoughts. And so, you can't go forward without learning from your past. So, the past, I think everywhere is rocky. I purposely watch other commission meetings to remind myself that this is normal, because we do get caught up in the everyday minutia that kind of starts to blow up. And then that's when we start losing the vision, and we start losing the perspective, and we start, deviating from the big picture. And the big picture is always going to be that we just want to make this amazing place better. And I think if we just keep that in the back of our heads, learn from our past, grow from our mistakes, and just keep, the train's going to keep moving, right? You either stay on the train or you get off. But I think that, you have this staff here that they're visionaries, they're brilliant, they're smart, they're innovative, and they're going to let you execute all these amazing things that you brought to the dais, and that's why you're sitting there, and that's why we're here. So, I know we're honored to be here. We're honored to have you leading the city. And yeah, the past was rocky. I don't think anybody can say otherwise, but the future's bright. And we're just going to keep moving forward, and thank you for letting us and giving us that opportunity.
I was sharing with Jeff earlier that, I have the privilege. I'll stand really, really still. That's going to be really hard. I'm Italian. I don't know what to do standing still. That's going to hurt. This is going to be me all the rest of the day. I have the privilege of working with elected officials across the country, and I go into organizations, and I work with staff too, and inevitably, wherever I go, somebody will pull me aside and say, this is really the worst place, right? This is just terrible. And nobody said that to me today. Here, let me just be clear. Nobody said that. In case you were going to, don't. And I have to tell them, no, it's not. This is hard work. Running a city and building community is hard. All of you know that in this room. You wouldn't be at it if you didn't have a passion for it and a love for it. It's certainly not the paycheck. It is, and that's certainly not the case for the elected officials too. It is about creating that sense of place, the mango moment. That's going to be stuck in my head now. It's going to be the mango moment. It's creating those places where people feel that they belong and that they're part of something that's bigger than themselves. And so whenever I go into organizations, I always assume good intent. I assume that the people who are doing the work are doing the best they can at that moment with the resources they have. That nobody gets up in the morning and says, how am I going to screw the city today? No, they're trying their hardest. Sometimes we fail, and that's okay. It's how we learn from the things of the past to make the future better. And everybody goes through struggles. Everybody has peaks and valleys. No place is utopia all the time. Even those places struggle too, and so it's. I think those places that admit where they've had struggles and learn from them and move forward are the ones that are more resilient, that are more sustainable for the long term. I saw somebody had a hand over here. Yeah, Sammy.
I think Delray Beach is ahead of the curve. I've worked for this is my third local government that I've worked for, and honestly, what I heard was a sense of ownership, pride of ownership, a sense of belonging from the stories that I've heard from the commission. And it gives me hope for the leadership in terms of our vision going forward, because there's the ability for the commission to be able to talk through those issues that they disagree around. But at the same time, there's still that sense of belonging that I'm hearing, and it just makes it better for staff, because I work and I've listened to commissions where you didn't get a sense that they really cared about the community at all. But I hear I'm a part of this, I belong to this, I'm in a leadership role, so I'm going to do my best to make sure that we work things out. Yes, we're going to disagree. However, we're going to work things out because we want Delray to continue to be a model place. I used to travel into work for almost 20 years, an hour easy on each day. I live 12 minutes away from where I work, and that's what I feel about Delray Beach.
Anything else? Any reflections that people had?
I would like to add something if I could, because I don't know how many of you know this, that when we did the downtown master plan in 2002, I was a young planner for Treasure Coast, and I worked on that plan, and it has been over 20 years. I didn't even have the son who's now at FSU. And I think that, I think as difficult as the discourse seems to have been in the last era, we're still moving towards making this great city. And some of that is protecting what we have. I mean, I think we have to be cognizant of that because we've maintained the small scale of a beach town that so many Florida cities have lost. Part of what works in my favor for recruiting planners is how much they want to be part of a city that does these plans and sticks with them and still references them 20 years later. So from my perspective, I see some of the same challenges we had before, in 2020, I think it was 2002 for the master plan. We still have some of those same ones, but we have done other great progress, you know, and that's a testament to both the CRA and the city and the DDA, you know, Public Works, all of us moving towards that vision. And so maybe it's time to take a beat and make sure we all still understand what the vision is. But I don't know. I think we have a great history of celebrating what's great about our city and helping move forward, and I think we can keep doing that. So.
Any other reactions? I think Sam, you mentioned it. There were a lot of common themes in what all of you said. Certainly some differences. That's what makes governing important, is that you all have differences. If you voted 5-0 on everything, something tells me that you probably weren't having hard conversations if you did. And so while we all like to go with the flow and it feels better when you have unanimity, progress happens when you work through the hard challenges and the hard topics and address those head on. And I think some of your statements help to illuminate that and illuminate those opportunities to do that. So let's take a quick break so you all can stretch your legs and adjust your fluid levels. And we will, it is 9:45. We'll come back at 10. And when we come back, I want to spend some time, the elected officials have some stickers in front of you. And we're going to play with stickers for a few minutes when we talk about the role that you all as elected officials play as part of the governing body. Okay, so come on back at 10. So we are all different people. We have different perspectives and different experiences that we bring to our work. And none of that is more true, I believe, than the roles that elected officials play. You all weren't elected to your position because you went to commissioner school. There wasn't a course. Maybe you took civics or something like that when you were in school, but there was no how to be an elected official class that you took. Maybe through like the Florida Municipal League or some other organization. Once you became an elected official, you may have gone through some trainings, but you are not elected to your position because of this particular job. You're elected because of your perspective and your experience, and in many cases, how you can relate to the community that you serve. Because of that, there probably was no job description that you got either when you were elected. And so you all kind of feel your way through. You learn the different parts of the city organization. The staff gives you lots of information. They help educate you about services that are provided. The community helps educate you about the services that they want and they need. But there is no specific job description that really describes the role that you are expected to play. Despite that, in our experience, my colleagues and I, as I mentioned, have worked with hundreds and hundreds of governing bodies over the last 20 years. And there are some very key roles that are unanimous, despite the fact that there is no consistency in any kind of job description. The only consistency is that there isn't one. But there are roles that elected officials play in carrying out their duties as they serve, as you serve. And so what I have in front of you, and I've got some extra copies for staff if they're interested, is we've put together an article. I think you got this as an early handout for today's event, but I also gave you a hard copy of it as well, too. And there's a lot of information I think that's good. You can put it under your pillow at night that helps to kind of articulate what, in our experience, what we've seen as those key attributes of a highly effective governing body, as well as the roles that we see elected officials play. And so you also have some stickers in front of you. We'll talk about those in just a moment. But again, what we've learned is that there really are 6 key roles. None of these are wrong. None of these are better than another. They are different roles that are very common among governing bodies. And we also know as humans that sometimes, given certain situations, we may play different roles. We may have to act differently given a particular item that you have in front of you or a particular issue that you are deliberating on. But these are some of the key roles that we see governing body members play. The first is strategic vision. That's a hard one. As I mentioned before, that's the role oftentimes that nobody else in this community can really play other than you all as elected officials. And in that role, that big picture thinker role, what we see is there are elected officials there that really do focus on those longer term decisions that have impact on the community, really the entire community. It is bigger picture thinking, forward thinking. That's really what the strategic vision role looks like. Then the next role is a trustee or a steward. And so this role really is about looking at constituent views and being responsible to your current constituents as well as future constituents too, thinking about your role as a trustee for city decisions. The next role is a representative. This is sort of the constituent advocate. I will say that in many cases, this is the role that a lot of elected officials tend to gravitate towards. This is the one who really believes that their job is, in some ways, a little bit more transactional, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but it is about responding to the constituent services, the resident or your citizen requests that come in. The next role is the community builder. This role is somebody who gravitates towards the responsibility or the role of building community, of bringing people together, of really collaborating, of being the facilitator of conversations, of words. I like this concept that to the community builder, the word community is not a casual word, that means something, that really is about building community. The fifth role is the decision maker. And the decision maker, we often liken this one to a judge. That, issues are brought before you, you vote things up or down based on their merits, and it is somewhat focused on the here and now and those particular agenda items or issues that are before you. It's a harder role to play, I think, in some cases because it takes you often recognize, and I know you all do this in what you've done already. For those of you who are new, it's hard to please everybody, and there are always going to be people with whatever decision that you make who may not agree with that decision. And then the final role is the oversight role. And this is a role that some elected officials or council members or commissioners will gravitate towards when they see their role as really being more of the oversight of staff. That their job is to ensure that staff is focused on implementing the policy direction of the elected officials, that they are really focused on the accountability in particular of staff. So what we often find is that, as I mentioned, there may be one or two of these roles that you as elected officials tend to gravitate towards. They may be why you ran for office or continue to run for office. There are others that maybe don't resonate with you. But I'm going to ask you now to take your stickies. And if you were to rank one top being that role that you tend to gravitate towards more. This is the fun part. This is the art, not the science. But the role that you gravitate towards more, I'm going to ask you to think of them and order them, rank them 1 to 6. 1 being that role that you are more naturally inclined to, that you feel yourself being drawn to more often when you are up at the dais and you are acting in your capacity as an elected official. 6 being that role that resonates with you less. And then this is a tactile exercise. I'm going to ask each of you to take a minute and come on up to the board here. I've got your names written across the top. You can ignore this one over here. And I want you to just put your stickers down 1 through 6. As you're able, come on up, and then we'll take a look at we'll have some conversation around it and take a look at what this shows us. I should have asked if anybody was colorblind before I did this. So first of all, I'd like to commend you all for following the rules. I did this exercise not long ago with another city council, and it was a city council. And in this case, the council members all went up and did that, and the mayor kind of hung back and was the last one. And what he did is he put all 6 of his in one area. He said, I can't decide. I do all of these things. So I appreciate you playing along with me and going through this. So now what I want to ask you is, the colors aren't as important, although I think it helps you see where some of the similarities and some of the differences are. And I appreciate what Ms. Burns was saying, that diversity is important. That it's important to have different perspectives. But if we were to kind of take a look at this in terms of the general energy around this, it's clear to me that for the most part, oversight and decision making are down at the bottom. So I would say you got 2. If we were to get a sense of kind of the consensus of the group, maybe decision makers at the bottom, is that fair? And then oversight is kind of next here. And that's where we kind of lose some consensus. Probably there's some constituent advocate right here. Yeah, and then the green one, you got the trustee steward. It's kind of here. And then your last 2 are community building, which I think probably because you got 2 up there, we'll put that one up here. Again, this is the art, not science part of it. And then strategic vision, we'll say over here. Let me pause for a minute and ask, as you all were going through this exercise and thinking about your own propensity in certain areas, what was your reaction? What did you think as you were putting these together for yourself?
It got harder as I pulled off 2 stickers because, I don't have the experience as a commissioner, but as a leader in other areas in education and other community things that I've done, my priority or what I tend to do is multiple. I should have had 2 in the first one and 2 in the second one, because the last one is definitely not last on my list. It's like, but following the rules, I had to make it last.
Yeah. Thank you for following the rules. Good student.
Same way. I felt like I could put all of them up at the top. So just trying to get, ones in order, it was hard. I can switch around a few of them easily, and I can even bring the ones at the bottom for certain things up to the top. So you're dealing with all of it,
Yeah, it's sort of, I think of it as, what's easier, which part of your brain is easier to flex, what muscle's easier to flex, and which one's harder when I think about these. And sometimes some of these are not your natural inclination.
Yeah. I think it was a great exercise because you really had to come at it from as a local elected official in your role. I mean, it was very clear in the directions, which makes you really, focus on it. And I moved it around probably 6 different times of re-ranking them. But you really have to look at the position of the last 5 years and what's really needed and what's important and prioritize them. It wasn't easy.
Yeah. Others, Adam or Rob, any other reaction doing this?
My comments kind of echo Commissioner Burns in that, I actually spent more time campaigning for this seat than I've sat in it so far. So a lot of these are very aspirational for me. I mean, I'm not new to elected office or to serving the city, but I'm new to this role. And so I went with more what gravitates to me and my personality and what I aspire to. I think I have a character flaw in that I'm incapable of enjoying the moment. I'm always thinking ahead. And so for me, the vision part of it is what just I gravitated towards naturally. And during the course of the campaign, I got to do a lot of sort of community building in a way. And I think that's such an important aspect to this. But these are all super important. And so it became more about what do I think I'd be good at based on level of importance of what I should be good at as a commissioner. And so it was an interesting exercise.
And I remarked to Rob, I'm like, it's interesting, you and I are the opposite. But, you know, to your point and what Ms. Burns said earlier, the diversity of that, I think, is a good thing. I kind of, you know, now that I'm in my 12th year of this racket, I just kind of, I just kind of, you know, used my experiences, and that's how I ranked it. And, you know, I always say to people when asking about this, I liken this to a step above student council. Obviously, it's a bigger level, and what you're dealing with, the hundreds of millions of dollars budget and issues, but the issues are kind of, they're simple in many ways. So that's basically how I ranked how I did it.
How about staff? When you saw this, any reaction to what you see up there?
My response is not only consistent based on my experiences here in Delray Beach nearly the past couple of years, but throughout my career as a city manager to date. Very common themes, very similar, and your analogy relative to the one elected official in the other community you serve, categorizing all subsets in one area, I've heard that quite a bit, so I'm actually proud of these ladies and gentlemen for being able to come up with a distinction, and I think that's a function of the myriad of perspective, the years of experiences that they bring to the table, and their ability to therefore execute that guidance. Yeah. So kudos to each of you, ladies and gentlemen, in that regard, and I think that's helpful in terms of us soon being in position to really outline strategic goals now that that definitive understanding that has been clarified. This is especially important, I think, for people like Commissioner Burns and Deputy Vice Mayor Rob Long, given their orientation. That continues to be the experience in that regard. So to have that perspective is quite productive as well. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
So, you know, with what I appreciate so much about exercises like this, and we'll talk some more about it in a moment, but is the fact that, as I've said, you all will have different perspectives, and you will flex different muscles for different issues. But in order to move this community forward, you are going to have to, in some ways, flex all of these muscles at some point. But knowing where each of you kind of sits naturally, I think only serves to help your understanding of each other and where you're coming from in how you may look at some of the issues that come before you. Just tell you another example. I was working with another group of elected officials, and it was another council, and it was a council member who they were tenured council members. They had been together and they had been working together for a number of years, and they started talking about just their own process of how their expectations of each other as elected officials. And one council member said, in a moment of honesty, said to another council member, you know, it really frustrates me because I don't feel like you do your homework. I don't feel like when you come up at council meetings, when you're sitting at the dais, I don't feel like you've read the agenda because you ask a lot of questions. And they're kind of basic questions that I think that you should know, or you're asking us you're asking your colleagues questions of how they think, and this and so it was an important moment for these council members to have this. It wasn't televised, and there weren't members of the public in the meeting, and they just said, it kind of frustrates me when you do that because I don't feel like you do your homework. And this council member in response said, well, I appreciate that feedback, but let me tell you what I do and why I ask those questions. And this council member went on to say, I do my homework. I read all of the agendas, and for any of our planning items, I actually go back and I watch all of, and I read all of the minutes from the Planning Commission. So I am well educated about what brought these items to our agenda. The reason I ask those questions is because I want to hear from my colleagues. I come to the meeting with an open mind. I have the background, but I don't come to the meeting with decisions made. I come with an open mind because I have the potential to be influenced by important thoughts that my colleagues have. And this other council member said, well, that's great to know because I've already made my mind up 2 weeks before it even comes before the council. And so it was an important opportunity for them to just sort of express how they approach the work differently. And when you think about these different roles, if some of you approach the work from a much more strategic, long-term perspective, you may ask questions about agenda items, about longer-term impact. When some of you who may be more focused on trustee or steward or even the decision-maker part of it, it's kind of like, let's get moving. Mm-hmm. Come on, let's make a decision and move on. And the strategic vision person is thinking, well, what's going to happen 10 years from now? And is this the right choice? Does it match what's in our comp plan? What are those longer-term impacts? And again, those are just dynamics of how we work. But even knowing where you generally sit in some of those spaces may help build that camaraderie among each other about how you go about making decisions.
Yeah, I think that was really beneficial because Ms. Burns and Mr. Long joining us, for me to see this, like way at the beginning. Frankel, you could have just handed me your sticker pack. I would have been 6 for 6, because we've worked together for a very long time. Yeah. But with new team members, this is a really valuable exercise. So thank you.
So one other thing that I will just point out, and then I will certainly open it back up. This tells me something. What's your reaction to that?
Well, mine's up top.
That tells me something.
Yeah, the one that says like a judge and our one attorney puts that at the top. Yeah, that makes sense. 100%.
To be fair, he told me
it.
that when I talked to him. Give me
That's
2
right.
things, I'll tell you, but don't ask me to tell you what those 2 things are. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think we're all, because we put all of that at the bottom, I think that's very, very interesting too, because it's every one of us except for one, and it was only one of your 2 stickers, so we all agree.
How about oversight?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing because when you were talking about oversight, we do not have the direct, we cannot direct any of the director positions. Mm-hmm. We have the city manager and the city attorney that are our direct reports, but it takes 3 of us to have anything go forward. So that's one of the reasons why that's one of the lowest things on the list for me.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't come into play that often, and when it does, we're together making that decision.
Mm-hmm.
How about staff? What reactions did you all have when you saw this?
Missy Barletto, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't say it like I'm going to say something profound.
Everybody's listening with bated breath. Yeah.
So the thing that I like about this is that community building is up at the top, but what strikes me is that we've separated out strategic planning from community building, and you've ranked strategic planning lower on the list. So for me, you can't really build community properly without putting your strategic plans in place first and foremost. I know that there's an overall feeling that we make plans and they sit on the shelf. As you heard from Anthea this morning, that's a misconception. We make plans and we work your plans and we continue to work your plans for decades after there are new people in your seats. So without those plans, I can't go after other people's money to do your projects. Without those plans, we don't have that guidance. So
as you're thinking about community building, it would be awesome for staff for you to also think about strategic planning.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, Missy, because I had strategic planning right out of the gate. It was like up at the top. And then there's the more thought I put into it, I was like, it's really, the community gives us that, that vision. And so as I was reading the descriptions, it slowly moved lower and lower just because I was, looking at our role. But I agree very much with that. And I think that does build community, right?
I didn't get as far as he did on that. I just was there thinking that we have to have the plan first, and then we move down with the community response, but we have to have that strategic plan. So that's where I kind of started off at the top. But the thing that I gravitate most to is the trusteeship. That's just, it's just a natural, and it feels right, and that's why I put that as my number one. I think I was the only one that put that up there. But it could have switched, either or.
Yes, I was just thinking that you can also look at it as, community building is necessary in order for you to get some strategic plans done. I mean, building relationships is very important. So then you get people that are able to work together, get to know each other, to know what your strengths are, and then at that point, those plans can be made, and then, you're a little successful. So.
Gina.
Well, when I saw community building and trustee or steward at the top, I kind of was struck because to me those are so connected, because it kind of goes back to what Sammy was saying about all of you expressing a sense of deep connection to the city. So for me, those were so linked, and it was nice to see that was kind of at the top. And also in my position, I get a lot of feedback from the community. I see a lot of that, maybe like slight disconnect, different viewpoints that are sometimes in contrast to each other. So the fact that you guys feel that community building should be at the top is great, because I think that we need that, of course. Every community needs to feel united and have a purpose for itself. And I think that if that's our mindset, we only have a few steps to get to like a really wonderful place in building community, because for the most part, 99% of our residents are truly happy.
It's easy to lose sight of that. The 1% tends to be the loud ones, yeah. So
I have just one right here.
Yeah.
So I actually have it made me kind of laugh, to be honest with you. It made me laugh. So my first reaction
he's
was,
having fun.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
job, Sam.
My
All
first
right.
reaction was like, that's interesting, because I thought it would be completely the opposite, right? Right? And then I kind of laughed. kind of, sort of, right? So then I kind of laughed, and I'm like, no way. You could flip that whole thing upside down. That's the way it really feels. From the department head side, at least for me, I'll say that. And then I said, if I did this as my department, as the leader of my department, I'd put it just like that, right? And my staff, though, I bet you they'd be like, "You're crazy, Sam. Flip it," right? So I think it's perspective of if we as kind of the employee that works for you, right? I know there's the city manager role, but that hierarchy, we look at it and go, it should be flipped upside down. And I bet you my staff would say the same thing about me as their leader, even though I'd rank it just like that. So I just thought it was an interesting perspective.
That is one of my top goals for 23-24. I want you to do that next year, and I want it to show up just like this. I want us to be that much on the same page. I don't want it to be flipped. And I know that's, sometimes it's hard, right? But I thank you so much for being honest and sharing that. And that is something I'm going to think about in this next year. I don't want it to feel flipped.
Rob, and then we'll come to you.
Just to quickly interject, I think, though, from a theoretical standpoint, that's somewhat dynamic, because each of those roles take on varying degrees of importance depending on the situation at hand. So to be an effective leader or a commissioner or mayor, you're going to those particular roles will take precedence. If you were, for instance, if there is a pressing issue about a community engagement issue or what have you, or if there is a major decision to be made. So to kind of allude to what you said earlier, it may sound a little bit not following direction of what the mayor, what you referenced, not our mayor, but the other mayor. But in a real sense, it's tough to put one over the other because it depends on the situation at hand. All of those are very important aspects and attributes, but you have to look at the situation at hand and then deploy the various governance roles to become an effective leader. You can't say, in a static sense, I'm going to stick with this. This is the number one role, because you have to change those governance roles depending on the situation at hand.
And how others experience them. Now, you all may experience these in one way, and as Sam was saying, staff may experience them differently. I think about, if I were to take this to my personal life, and I have teenagers at home, and my ideal is that I am being very strategic, and I am raising, well-rounded, civic-minded, good humans. I'm sure if they were to do this, they'd put oversight at the top. Yeah, right? Like that's how they feel. How it's like the meme of what I think I'm doing, but what I'm actually doing, or how others perceive what I do. It's the same thing. So there may be things that you idealize, and that's important. That may be things that you gravitate to. There may be things on this list that you gravitate to that you don't necessarily want to gravitate towards, because you see that there's a greater need. I think it's helpful to be self-aware about that, because then it may push you to think differently when issues come up. That, what's your natural inclination may not be the right role to play given a particular issue or circumstance. And so having this framework to think, do I really need to have an oversight role in this? Do I really need to be the decision maker here? Maybe what we really need is community building. Maybe it's not our decision. It should be involving other people, for example, just as a way of having a framework to think about how you want to approach issues. Rob.
So I think Mr. Dunkley said it very well, that we should have like you just said too, a fluid approach to ranking these roles given the scenario. But I think sort of a diversity among these is a good thing. You can make an argument for any of these rankings in any order as far as importance goes, and I think diversity among our commission, especially with different, it means we kind of cover all the bases in a given scenario. If we each have our own thing that we're more focused on as a commission, as long as we can work together collaboratively, I think it's good to have different of us that more or less specialize or focus on a different thing at a different moment.
Yeah, and sometimes I say, what you do in your day job isn't necessarily what got you hired for this job. You weren't elected because of your day job, and yet your day job is what you were trained for. And so, if you're an attorney, or we have some people who are in finance, so they may gravitate more towards the trustee stewardship role because that's their background. And so knowing that, again, doesn't necessarily make it wrong or right. It's just awareness of how you may approach certain issues, I think, is an important perspective. Anything else? Yeah.
I just wanted to put in a comment about strategic vision, because some of the issues that we're facing now have been coming for a long time. It's going to take a long time to work them through. They're complicated. They take multiple departments to do that. And so having a vision that points us in the right direction, in the same direction, is important.
I want to, echo a lot of what we're hearing, is I think if you look at the organization, it's sort of like, what is the vision, what is the direction the community wants to do, which the five of you are charged with translating to us, right? But we do that periodically, and some of these plans are long-term plans. We don't do these roadway improvements overnight, and getting the funding is a multi-year effort. And so we start trying to take a strategic plan off of a vision to implement it, and then if we're all rowing in the same direction, then sure, oversight and all those things should kind of be at the bottom, right? Because we all know the direction we're going. And I think some of what's challenging with our city is, we have things that are like ranked 1 and 2 that this board has to make a judgment call against. Affordable housing coming in on a commercial corridor where the tax base is. We need both. And I think that's where sometimes I think I bring things to you that there's not really a wrong side to be on. It's just a question of who feels more passionately about the vision or that aspect. And so I don't really truly believe we're as divided as sometimes, our votes turn out to be, because we have competing interests, and everybody's right, but we have to make a decision based on where we are now, what is the more important thing, or what moves us more towards the direction we want to be in. So, sometimes I don't think that we appear divided from the outside, but I actually think they're just that we're getting to the nitty-gritty as we grow through redevelopment and things like that. So, I don't know, I just wanted to add that.
That's why decision maker can be really hard, because in the decisions that come before you, or the asks that come before you, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. That's a very simple equation, and particularly when you have controversial items that come before you, even though Gina said 99% of this community is happy, they may be happy, but they're not necessarily unanimous in their thinking. Of course they're not. So you may have issues that come before you where 1 + 1 equals bananas. And it's not even part of that same equation. And so that's where your values come into play. What are the community values that you ascribe to issues that come before you? And how does that impact? How do they influence the decisions that you all make? Any final comments about this? Thank you for playing with stickers. I hope that this is helpful as a framework for you all to think about how we move into that strategic vision piece. And so next, what I have for you is, and again, this is a little bit of playing with stickers too exercise for the elected officials. Will you put that up on the wall? Thank you, Joe. I had 2 questions that I wanted you to think about in coming to today. As we talk about the future, some of you said this earlier, it's important to think about the past and learn from the past in order to begin to chart the future. I think it's also important to think about the present and what's going on in this community today. I want you now, for the elected officials, I want you to think about these 2 questions. First of all, what is true today about this community, about Delray Beach, that you hope will still be true 10 years from now? In other words, what is precious? We don't often talk about, in city government, we don't use the word precious very often. But when we talk about community, I do think about what is precious, that mango moment. What is precious about this community that creates those moments that you hope will still be true 10 years from now, that you don't want to lose? And then the second question is, what's not true today? What doesn't exist, or what's not precious in this community that you hope will be true 10 years from now? Now here's your assignment. This is the listening part again. You have Post-it notes in front of you. And this is, again, I should have asked if people had any color issues. But you have some minty green Post-it notes. And I want you to, on those minty green Post-it notes, write those things that are true today that you hope will still be true in 10 years. The important rules for that are, number 1, 1 idea per sticky note. I've got lots more minty greens here, so you're limited by only the number of sticky notes that are in this room. The second rule is it would be fabulous if they could be legible, or else I just make up words, and they may not be the right words. So on your minty green ones, What is true today that you hope will still be true 10 years from now? And then you have some pink Post-it notes in front of you. And then on the pink Post-it notes, what is not true today that you hope will be true? What do you want to create or see 10 years from now? So take about 5 or 10 minutes to do that, and then I'm going to ask you to bring your sticky notes up and put them on the appropriate board. And staff, you can all mingle amongst yourselves for a few minutes so we don't sit here in silence, awkward silence, while the elected officials do that.
Mine's the worst. I'm gonna have to go up and help her. And I tried. I really tried. My youngest turned 6. Yeah.
favor?
Yes, ma'am.
It's just the one for the month.
No.
I don't want to meet with Chief Justice. The Stevie thing.
No, police are free. He's totally empowered. Yeah, go get him. Chief
All right, let me share with you what we came up with.
No, he'll stay here the whole time, so you can let him get a break. Yeah.
And by we, I mean all of you.
Got it. Feel free to reach out to him, and I'll mention it.
Mine don't look like that.
So I believe there are two types of people in this world. There are lumpers and there are splitters. And I'm a lumper. And so what I did is I lumped a bunch of your ideas together, those that seem that they could be like ideas, but you all wrote them, so you can tell me if I lumped or split things in ways that don't resonate with what you were intending in your comments. So those things that are true today, and ways that you describe this community today that you want to maintain, that are precious, that you hope will still be true 10 years from now. So there are a number of stickies, and as I was joking with Adam, I don't think anybody copied off of each other, but there were a lot of very similar phrasing for some things. There were several here about vibrant downtown. There was also one that's quaint downtown, which may not be the same thing as a vibrant downtown in terms of how you might define that, but certainly energy around the downtown. Several here about your beaches. Award-winning beach, crown jewel beach, award-winning beaches, clean, quiet beach. Several here about being a tourist destination. Tourist destination, world-class tourist destination, sports destination city. So being a place that people come to. Several here about staff. Awesome city CRA staff, amazing city staff. And then there's several here, like ideas about neighborhoods and community. These are ones I kind of lumped together. Great, safe neighborhoods, great sense of community. Several here that may be similar, but I think are still a little bit different. Two that talk about diversity and creating diverse communities. Two I put together that are great quality of life, which probably applies to a lot of this, as well as leading city in Palm Beach County. Focus on arts and health. Low millage. Rich history. All-American city. Low-rise building. And then two here that could fall into some of the other categories. Foodie destination town and great restaurants. Could go in with destination, but I know that you all like restaurants, not just for those that come from the outside, but for those that live here too. So those are some of those. These are the stickies that you all wrote. Oh, then I think the last one I didn't mention, ownership and investment in safety. So these are some of the things that you hope that are true today that you hope will still be true. Anything missing from this list? Now that you've heard all these, anything missing that you would add?
I don't think we mentioned businesses. We've got great businesses here, and it's just a booming business town. People are always trying to get into it. So I think that's one of the things that I failed to mention that I'd like to see continue. So a great economy. I mean, that gets us through the tough times in our city.
Anything else? I was going to ask, how about staff? Is there anything that's true today that you see about this community that you hope will still be true in 10 years?
Authenticity and the authenticness of our community, our town.
Now I'm going to move over to this board. These were the things that are not true today that you hope will be true in the future. Spoiler alert, these are the things that you all need to have a hand in creating. So again, I lumped some of these together. There are several here around civil and constructive online discourse, divisive city government, or less division among the community, and somewhat related to community engagement, I lumped in there the highest voter percentage turnout in the county. There are several that I lumped together here that are about some of your city facilities and city buildings. New police station, new city hall, new municipal golf course clubhouse, new water treatment plant. Hassan, did you write that one?
You gave me $10 to do it.
So again, several about your facilities. And then a couple here about the downtown, consistent lunch crowd in the downtown. And then several here about parking and efficient traffic flow. And then the rest were individual, or at least I didn't lump them together, and they are beautifully landscaped medians, more sustainable building rules, state or national leader in sustainability, affordability for housing, economic vibrant set, larger corporate tax base, more Class A office space, maybe, and I'll probably put that with economic vibrancy. Events farther west, a very active cultural center, leader in education and innovation, and clearly establishing a dress code for goal-setting meetings. Yes, I think that's it.
I did last year too. I don't know.
Mark that down next year. What else? What's missing from this now that you've heard that full list?
Maybe improved public transportation, or at least the usage of it.
I can't write on stickies. So when I look at these lists, and I'll ask staff that question too, that I asked on the other one, anything that you think is missing?
Well, you know what I noticed, and it was easier to do the green list than it is to do the pink list. And I want to know why that is.
Where's strategic vision on that list?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's harder.
Yes.
It's harder. Because you living in the now, you know what you enjoy today. But I think it goes to what Ryan said before. What is it about those moments that you want to recreate? And what is it that makes this community so special that will continue, that will be evergreen, that will continue? That's a much harder question.
True.
Thoughts? Other things that you think are missing from this list?
I have one. I actually think that what is not true today that I hope will be true in 10 years is that some of the energy and vibrancy of East Atlantic Avenue is on West Atlantic Avenue. We have some changes coming through, but that was still an issue in 2002, and I would like to see that neighborhood scale appropriate redevelopment, but that's, I think, an area that I would like to see evolve.
So I just wrote it down as east-west, east equals west, Atlantic Avenue for my shorthand. Anything else from staff?
Yeah, I would also like to see in 10 years that navigating the downtown area becomes easier for everyone, whether that's through implementation of technologies, helping people find parking spaces before they ever get to the downtown area, better traffic management, better management of the curb, and those types of things.
Let me ask,
Wayfinding.
for those of you that talked about parking and traffic flow, is there a specific need to focus on parking and traffic flow and wayfinding in the downtown that's different than the rest of the community?
Yes.
So I may, again, as a lumper, I may talk about or think about a focus area that is about parking and traffic flow throughout your community that includes specific strategies for your downtown as well as other parts of your neighborhoods and the rest of the community.
If I could suggest that perhaps it be termed mobility, because as the commissioner raised the issue of transit and other ways of moving around than an individual automobile, if we're going to get serious about solving mobility and parking and all of those other things in downtown and sustainability, right? I think that we need to understand that we have to find solutions other than the car that work. And we've done some micro-mobility efforts. We used to have a trolley. We don't have a trolley. We duplicate PalmTran. We don't duplicate PalmTran. But that is an important part of the equation. So rather than it be traffic and parking, I think it should be mobility.
I agree. Can I just make one recommendation? Just because I know you're going to use these for your notes, right, in your summary. East equals west on Atlantic Avenue might be misleading for you later on. And it was specifically mentioned that the vibrancy, a different vibrancy, I think in many ways if west ends up looking just like east, we may have failed in some ways. So, we good? Good. All right. So this was written to make sure that it's the vibrancy, right?
Thank you.
Is met, and not necessarily east just equals west.
Good
job. So in 10 years or less, we should have our
Sustainability.
carbon emissions at 50%, and we should do that in an environmentally just way.
Absolutely.
Can't believe I make you write on these things. Others?
I have one. I hope in 10 years we've retained our amazing staff and leadership, as much of it as possible. Hope a lot of these same faces are still here. Those of you who aren't in drop already.
I will be
I was going to say, I'm glad you said that.
I'm announcing now.
I think we would have some opposition back here with Dolores. I'm not going to be here for 10 years.
I put staff development and retention. Is that fair, Rob?
It's on. I'd love to have a community that knows where to go to for the factual information, not the alternative factual information.
Yeah, I hope that for the whole world.
I didn't bring my magic wand today. So is that about public information?
Yes, Gina puts out a lot of great information, but the public doesn't avail themselves of the avenues that she utilizes to get that information out as much as they should.
I might have missed it. I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, but affordability.
Talk a little bit about that.
it's kind of a double-edged sword because you want to be able to be affordable, but it has some negative impacts in a sense because you do want a strong tax base, but you want to be able to have your employees living within the confines of your city. So to be an affordable city, whichever way you define that. I think for South Florida in general, that's an issue, but some cities are outpacing others in terms of affordability. I don't think the typical median income individual can afford a home in Delray Beach.
So you're the CFO, so I know you're speaking like a CFO. When I hear affordability, it could mean lots of different things. And we'll spend a little bit of time this afternoon having you further define some of these, because affordability could be in housing, it could be in cost of living, it could be, some communities have initiatives designed to help with home ownership or things like that. So I think the concept of affordability is a good one. You have to further explore what that means for Delray Beach.
So on my notes, I took and said that I would like to see an expert conduct a true cost of living study to determine true impact to Delray residents. We have the national AMI, but it's not true to what is actually happening. Inflation goes up, but salaries are not going up. So to actually do a true study to see, to talk about and find out about the incomes of the people here in Delray Beach. I know that people are paying more than 30% on housing, and sometimes in some households 50%. But some sort of study to determine affordability and actually what that looks like here in the city.
Along those same lines, I'd like to see more high-paying jobs in Delray Beach.
Others. So what I want to do now is, based on what you've said, I hear some energy around a couple of key focus areas based on this conversation. So one of them that I heard was really about, I'll use the term mobility. And that includes flows of traffic and pedestrians and people in general throughout the downtown as well as the rest of the community in efficient ways. So I'm just going to say that is both in the downtown as well as citywide. I also heard a theme or a focus area around staff development and retention. The other one, there's this concept of maybe it's economic affordability. That is an umbrella term that includes both your workforce, the community workforce, as well as being a place, the cost of living, understanding and evaluating your cost of living. So we'll call this, these are my words, I'm going to make sure they reflect your words at some point. You all have used the term sustainability. What does sustainability mean to you? It's a big word, but is it economic sustainability? Is it environmental sustainability? Is it something greater than that or different than that?
So I think economic sustainability is really important, and that is something that we need to focus on. But when I put sustainability up there as a state or national leader, I was talking about environmental.
Michelle, just to contribute to that as well, the fact that the City of Delray Beach supports and administers an Office of Sustainability and Resiliency, that's of a paramount focus in that regard as well. So if we can offer subsets to reflect or acknowledge that presence as well.
So I also want to capture some of the other things that you mentioned as being key focus areas. So obviously, maintaining a vibrant downtown, and beaches, and then help me with Atlantic Ave. So vibrant Atlantic Ave. Does that fall into this category, or is it separate?
No, it's in addition to that, because as Commissioner Burns and others have brought up, there's an interest and focus relative to west of Swinton, West Atlantic Avenue, and Via Genyotis. I'll give you credit for that as well. So vibrancy in that portion of Atlantic Avenue or West Atlantic Avenue may have a different connotation than that of East Atlantic Avenue because of the dynamics and growth projections anticipated.
So tell me what's missing from this list. And the question here is, part of what we want to get to is, what are your key focus areas? What are those things that you think are the most important right now for this governing body to focus on?
Michelle, it's been touched on in both categories relative to major infrastructure improvement projects, specifically referencing the fact that there's been overwhelming support expressed via the most recent general obligation bond issue, police station, the improvements to other public safety facilities, and the park general obligation bond piece as well. In 2022, the City Commission authorized the necessary steps to proceed with the new water treatment plant facility, and that's all beginning to take shape in terms of a path forward. So those are definitely on the minds of not only the city administration in terms of the elected body appointed staff, but throughout the community as well. Because again, with the general obligation bond issue, the community played a vital role in helping the City of Delray Beach move forward in these regards.
I'm going to bring up the elephant in the room. We're in it, the golf course. That has no plan right now. I mean, I know we're going to be moving forward, hopefully, with a different plan, but we just came through a good 9 months of trying to develop a plan that was shot down. So this golf course here that we're sitting at is in dire need of renovations, inclusive of the clubhouse, and we just don't have that in our on a list yet to address.
I think people, I know it's a little nebulous, but people and community and diversity, if I left Delray and came back, in 10 years and the mobility wasn't better or we didn't build that public facility, it would be a shame. If I came back and the elders table wasn't still meeting or the chamber wasn't thriving and I couldn't walk into that and see the same people and new people, or I couldn't catch a show at Arts Garage or the Crest Theater that was put on by the community or by our children at the Hungerford Christmas Tree, that wouldn't be a shame. It would break my heart. And so I think that focus on our community, our community and our people and the overall, that vibe. We talk about the downtown vibe. That's a creation of a lot of different things, but the community vibe, that's built by the people, and that's what makes Delray Beach so special. That's why I live here. That's why I stay here. So I think that's a key focus area for me.
And just to piggyback on Ryan's comments, just I was sitting here thinking that what was missing, and that is the engaged residents. We have a lot of new residents here, so how do we get them engaged and to really be part of, the 68,000 people that live here? How are they engaged in our community, and moving forward in 10 years, what does that look like? So I think for all areas of our city, so bringing the residents really into it.
So I think if we're talking about public facilities, we'd be remiss to leave City Hall out of that conversation. I think that should be on the list under public facilities. But something I just realized that we hadn't touched on at all yet, which I'm kind of surprised about, but I get why, is education. We just had a presentation about our schools at our last meeting and kind of a plan for it. And I get why we left it out, because we have limited control over it. We have the school district and the state to work with on that front, but I still think it's something we always need to be considering. If our schools in Delray Beach aren't performing, that affects real estate, it affects everything. So I feel like it's something we definitely have to figure out, a pathway on how to manage.
So as you said, the five of you aren't the school board, so you don't control schools, but certainly you influence a lot. I'm curious, when you think about schools, or just that role that you all play as influencers in the community for things that impact your residents, are there other partnerships or relationships like that with the school that you think are important for this group to be mindful of and perhaps advocate for certain aspects of?
I think that is a great point, and that's kind of a shift that in my thinking, and I got to give credit to Ms. Bowens in her recent presentation. It really got my wheels turning. You can, and I put up there, a leader in education and innovation. You can be a leader in education in so many ways. You can educate your residents through, we have programs, right, that they go through, which is like the leadership, Delray Beach, that we're educating, right? There's a program for that. West Palm Beach is bringing the University of Florida into their community. It's a whole new entity, a whole new partnership, a whole new campus. That's innovating in education. So it doesn't always have to be that we look at the school district and have to work through that one funnel. That's part of it. There's so many other opportunities, and when we think education, we always think, K through 12, right? There's so many ways to be a leader in education, and I think if we start changing our thinking, we might be able to, move that forward in a lot of ways that we haven't been in the past.
So I'm going to ask this question a few times. You spent a good part of this morning talking about what you hope will be true in this community, what's important to you from your perspective, from your vantage point individually, what you believe is precious and what you want to see this community continue to sustain and grow in. My question is, as I read through these, I think we're up to 10 focus areas, if you maintain emphasis on these areas, will that vision that you have for this community be realized? Will you move the needle closer towards that vision of what you believe this community should look like in 10 years? And those key focus areas right now are, and we'll fix the wording of some of these, but this is just to get it up a little messy right now. Mobility, flow of people and vehicles throughout your community. Staff development and retention, so focusing on your city workforce. Economic affordability, sustainability and resiliency. A vibrant downtown, vibrant West Atlantic Avenue, public facilities, you've all mentioned a handful of specific ones, destination beaches, diverse community engagement, or maybe it's engagement of a diverse community. Work on the wording of that. But you want to maintain that sense of community. And being a leader in education. Not actually in the provider of, but in facilitating. Does this move you closer?
I think when I put all of that together, the only thing that's jumping out at me is it just parks and green space and wellness and outdoor activities. Like if I came back and all those things were checked, I'm trying to think what would be the one thing that is like blatantly missing for me, and that would be it. It's kind of, it's a, you know, if you have the golf course and public facilities, it's kind of in there, right? A vibrant downtown without, you know, green space and parks, it's kind of in there. The destination beaches is one of those places. But I think it needs to be called out how important, you know, we're planting 10,000 trees right now for a reason. All those trees 10 years from now, they need to be there, right? And so that's the only thing I see is missing for me.
How about the rest of you? Does this resonate? Are there things missing? Are there things that aren't at the top of the priority list? One second, Chief. Let Rob go.
So one of the things that there seemed to be a cluster of on the board was division in the community and civility and that whole vibe, and that was a big theme during the campaign cycle, if I'm being honest. And so I do think that should be a key focus area. I know we're here today to talk about what we're doing as commissioners, but we also have a responsibility as commissioners to be the public face of the city in a way. And we do sort of, in a way, dictate the politics of the city. So sort of trying to think of how to articulate this, but how we behave on social media, how we behave publicly, if not spreading misinformation, what we say to the press, that dictates the reputation of our city. That dictates the public discourse. That affects staff morale. None of the things that we want to do here, in my opinion, are going to work or we're going to have success with if we're undermining that with a public that is angry and divided. We're constantly fighting. I mean, we've seen lots of big projects get delayed over the years because there's been controversies that have distracted us. So I think if we can get on the same page politically in the city, it will help us achieve all of these goals that we're all seem to mostly be on the same page with.
What I might suggest is you have this category here of probably ill-worded, but diverse community engagement. And it may be this under this bucket of what must go well. It's not just about community engagement, but it's also about civility. And you're part of the community in the same way too. And so it may be, I would suggest maybe adding civility to that area. And it could be a place to better articulate some of those things that you all, as the elected body, can do to help promote and lead by example to create the right public discourse that you expect of your community members and of each other as well too.
Yeah, I would just second that in that kind of tying into what I said about the feeling you get when you walk in a room like this room or many rooms. We're invited to a room every single day. I think we can be at an event where you get that Delray feeling. That's not the feeling on social media, and that's not in Delray. That's in the world, right? So I think just protecting and making sure that doesn't become our vibe and our community brand, what's on social media, that we protect the one that actually exists. That's the real world one. I think they go kind of hand in hand.
Yeah. So, preview to what I'm going to ask you to do next. This is group project time. We're going to ask you to break up into groups. And the nice thing about some of these group projects is, or about this group project is, it's a group and you have a lot of resources in this room sitting all over here, to draw from to help you. And so if these are the right 10 or 11 key focus areas for right now, what we're going to spend some time on now and into this afternoon is defining these things. What do you mean when you say mobility? It's one thing when you say, we talked about economic affordability before. If I went around the room right now and asked everybody to define what economic affordability is, it would mean something different. But the important thing is we need to come to consensus on what these things mean for the 5 of you so that you are able to provide that clear direction to the staff. So they know when you say a vibrant downtown is important, what does that look like? What does that mean? How are you defining what success looks like? So to Ryan's point, if I come back 10 years from now and there's a vibrant downtown, what is that going to look like? Tell me what that means now so that I know as staff how we can be working to support that. Some of these are probably easier than others. You probably know what Destination Beach looks like. You may know what being a leader in education looks like. You may not quite know what, let's say, a vibrant West Atlantic Ave looks like. That's okay. That's what we're going to wrestle with a little bit this afternoon. But the idea is, if these are the right ones right now, and we can still change them. This is not written not in Sharpie yet. This is the draft for you all to spend a little bit of time on, working to define what's the right term for this, what's the right title for each of these key focus areas, and then answering the question, what does success look like? So that you can articulate that to anyone in this room, but more importantly to those outside this room too. Does that make sense? So there are 5 of you. I'm going to ask you to, I'm going to ask you to, you get opportunity to move around a little bit. I think lunch is probably going to be coming in the next 15 minutes or so. Is that right? Yeah. So what I'm going to ask is, while we're working together before we break for lunch, when you think of these terms or think of these 10 or 11 focus areas, are there any ones that you think should be lumped together? Are they all independent, or do any of them work together? You're going to define them and then begin to talk about what are some of the specific initiatives under each of these areas that you think are critical. Again, to help ultimately give some direction to your staff as they work through the budget process.
It might be beneficial to put a delineation on there's public facilities and there's public spaces, right? Public facilities being police station, fire station, water treatment. Public spaces being beach, park, golf course. I think they're two very different categories.
So help me with the wording. You want to keep public facilities,
but categorize it as the facilities needed to run the city, right?
So your city-owned property versus.
And then the other category is public spaces that the community gets to enjoy for recreation. And then obviously you could put beaches and parks under that category. It's a very different conversation for a water treatment plant and a golf course, right?
Yeah.
They're not the same. yeah, unless, yes.
But which one's more needed most times of the day?
Except which one's more needed, right, exactly. So that's why I think they're two completely separate conversations, both very important, obviously.
So what I may suggest doing is creating a category. These are categories of your focus areas. And so that focus area may be public spaces, and that would include your beaches as well as your parks, places that you're talking about, the community accesses, versus, and maybe this wouldn't go here, that would actually go, golf course would go here, but, you know, your city infrastructure would go under your public, we'll call the city facilities, for lack of a better. So you've got city facilities as a big category, public spaces as a big category.
Michelle?
Yeah.
I'm going to back this up a little bit. There's one thing that just keeps gnawing at me that we don't have on this list, which is a more vibrant and coordinated Congress Ave. You'll hear more about that in the upcoming days, but it's that street that kind of runs through the center of it all, and we really haven't paid a lot of attention to it. And I don't think we all know exactly where it's going right now. And I think it's really important moving into the future that we have a better grasp on that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and I was thinking that, you know, that way too. For me, that ties in, and not just Congress, but you could say, okay, what's after Congress, into the economic affordability aspect. Like, we need to get that going. We need to get, most likely it's the place that's suitable as far as the zoning goes for affordable housing, but also it needs to get on our tax roll, right? It needs to start generating for our taxes. So the sustainability opportunity as well in Congress is probably the top of my list, you know, for those two categories as far as a destination in our city or an area of our city. So I agree with you. I just don't want to start naming streets or naming areas in our city on this list. But I think it's good to be under those categories.
Does West Atlantic Ave go under that one as well too? Or is that completely different when you think about this concept of economic affordability and vibrancy?
I would say it's different because it's already decided and we just haven't gotten there yet. Whereas Congress Avenue is the question mark as to where we're going. So one's very different than the other. Not that it's decided, you know, what's going to go in there, but that what we're looking to do has been a long time coming and we haven't really got it off the ground on the West Atlantic area. Whereas right now, the Congress Avenue corridor, aside from a few empty lots, is pretty active. However, there's a transition possibly going to take place down there. So that's a little different.
And I want to ask my colleagues, would it make more sense instead of vibrant West Atlantic Avenue? I want to know what's in your mind when you think vibrant West Atlantic Avenue. I'm thinking this set. I'm thinking everything from Village Center to Pompey, definitely the Business District 5th, which is obviously not on West Atlantic, and then Atlantic, of course, and then West Atlantic itself. I don't want to just focus on West Atlantic. I think the whole set to ensure that that is vibrant in its own unique way than, you know, managing the vibrancy of our downtown.
I would agree.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I put economically vibrant set as one of mine, but that economic vibrance isn't going to be the same as it is downtown. There's a different feel, and we have to be careful with gentrification in that area, and there needs to be a focus on affordability, specifically in that area too. So I think it's just a more complicated evolution of where we need to go there, but it certainly needs to be a priority.
Can I ask a newbie question? What do you mean when you say set?
The set is it's an area. It's
and is this in set?
Right. So on the north and south of that West Atlantic is the northwest neighborhood and the southwest neighborhood, and those three make up the set.
So is there something bigger than this then?
Yes, right. That's what I think.
That you all want to focus on. That it is, I think, to your point, that it is. You've talked about a vibrant downtown. You've talked about economic affordability that may include different components, different physical, geographical locations in the city, but specifically a vibrant set, as I'm hearing now, not just West Atlantic.
So I would tell you that the West Atlantic corridor was once the Black Business District, and specifically there's one cross street there, that's the Fifth Avenue cross street. That was also a Black historically business district. that was all kind of wiped out over years and years ago, and it's never really been brought back. So the CRA, along with this, we're a part of the CRA, we're the CRA board, have been trying to rejuvenate that area and bring it back to at least somewhere where they can, there's like some spark to start it back up again. And that's why when you come in off of I-95 and you drive to Atlantic Avenue, down Atlantic Avenue, it's like when you cross over Swinton, it's a whole different ballgame than before you got there. And what we're trying to do is to get that area down towards, the I-95 corridor back up and running. In addition to that, you have some problems or some issues because one block off to the north and the south, houses.
Yeah.
So you have to be very cognizant of that. And the creep and the crawl of a business wanting to go into those areas and gentrify it is something else that we have to deal with and determine whether or not that's a good thing or not such a good thing. Because again, that displaces a population that has been there forever. That was our first area that was developed in our town.
I think for now, maybe you can just put the set, and through our next part of the exercise, we'll
You'll
kind of define that.
Yep.
Because it includes several schools, several parks, our main community center, technically City Hall, and a tennis stadium. I mean, and then there's the history and the community and the people. It's you're not going to define that one so easily.
Yep.
Michelle? So I just received confirmation from the kitchen that lunch will be available about noon, so that's about 19 minutes from now. So I would like to encourage us to keep moving forward, use the time wisely.
So any other changes to this list that you think are important? Right now you're at sort of 10 focus areas. Any other clarifying questions? Because as we come back from lunch, you will spend time. I'll ask each of the elected officials, this is where you can't stampede, to pick two that you want to work on. And then you get to pick some friends around the room that you want to have help you work on. And I'll write this up so that you all will have your instructions very clearly. But your task will be to, and I'll give you the sticky notes that people wrote that correspond with these items to help inform your conversation. And your job is going to be to look at the title of the focus area. Maybe some of these need to be changed a little bit to be more reflective of what you think it should be. I'll ask you to write just a couple of sentences, just 2 or 3 sentences for the ones that you choose, about what success looks like. So in that category, what does success look like? And then, if you have time, I'll ask you to start kind of putting some bullets underneath that of potential specific projects. Because I know we have a propensity to move on to the action stage, to the projects. And I asked you in preparation for today to begin thinking about some specific initiatives or projects. We'll make sure they align up with some of these too as we go through the afternoon. But you'll be thinking about what are some of those key projects that you think need to happen under each of these areas. In some cases, you've already identified that. There's certainly some projects in those lists of sticky notes already. So you've got some meat to work with. And I know most of you have some already in your head of some specific projects that may fall under the category. Questions about that?
I'll make a recommendation.
Yeah.
Start at one end, one each. Then at that end, one each. That way you got 10 and you don't have somebody picking out 2 that they really like from the start. That will keep the stampede from happening.
That's right. So then the stampede is going to be to pick to phone a friend, and which staff members you want. It's like playing Red Rover, I think. All right. So that means Ryan gets mobility. Angela, you've got.
I like that.
Oh, okay. Well, so, oh, you get to pick. Which would you like first? Yeah.
I get the first one.
Yeah, 1 second. You get to your draft pick number 1. What do you pick in the first draft?
I'll go with the diverse community engagement.
Okay.
And the.
You just get one. You just get one.
Oh, yeah.
Slow down.
Angela, which one would you like first?
Vibrant West Atlantic, the set.
Okay. That's Angela. Mayor?
And I'll do vibrant downtown.
Okay. That's Mayor. Beaches. You get beaches. You get public spaces, too.
I'll take mobility.
All right, now it goes back to Rob. You get your second pick. So.
There you go.
No, you get to pick another one. But he already put his dibs in for Missy on mobility. All right. Missy's been chosen. She's out of the draft. First round. Oh, you get the. You didn't pick the easy ones, for the first time out. So we've got staff development, sustainability and resiliency, city facilities, and education.
I'll go staff development.
All right. Mayor?
I will. Okay, what else is left? I'm sorry.
Sustainability, city facilities, and education.
I will do
City facilities.
Education.
I knew you wanted that. I didn't go for it.
And you get, I did 2 R's.
Sustainability.
You get sustainability. Okay.
Great.
So what we're going to do now is we can break, take a little bit of time before you grab your food. You are welcome to do one of 2 things. You can, when food comes out, you are welcome to, we've got lots of places around the room and tables, and you can move your bodies around. Grab a couple of staff members who you want to have help you. I will write the instructions up so it's clear. You can do this as a working lunch, and grab some food. I think we give each other permission to talk with our mouths full while we're working because we're doing important work. So feel free to take your break, and I will check in with you at 1, and we'll see where we're at 1 o'clock.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Renee, don't go anywhere.
Sam.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Janai,
Sorry, I'm sorry.
don't go anywhere.
Sorry.
Hi, I just had one question. So the Vibrant West Atlantic is obviously something that's very important to us because that's one of our primary focus areas. So a few years ago, the set was, I guess, removed and not something that we were using. So I think if we're doing clarity in this, I just wanted to know if that's something that is acceptable to use at this point because it was removed from some of the neighborhood plan that was implemented by the city.
Well, I would like to get consensus from my colleagues that we officially use the term the set.
I think people already use it.
Yeah.
It's being used.
Okay.
Renee wants to make it official.
I just want to make it clear because we don't want to go against what was already directed by the commission and from the plan. So I think just a clarifying point would be helpful for us and for city staff, I'm sure.
What's that?
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Just again, preview for this afternoon. You all are doing some independent work with staff. You will come back. So even though you each got 2 of these, you will have the opportunity to put your fingerprints on all of these. I don't want you to be concerned about that. So we will come back. You will get essentially a draft from your colleagues that you all will have an opportunity to talk about. So just rest assured you'll have the opportunity to talk about all 10 of these this afternoon. Okay? You can start now and grab food when it comes, and then I will check in with the groups at 1.